Hello, my name's Alyssa Grasso, and this is Awkward Author, my weekly vlog and podcast about my sometimes awkward, always awesome author life. And this week, I do have some exciting news to share about my writing progress. Also have a tip for teachers that I'm going to share, and just talking about what I am thinking about doing going forward, some of my plans for publishing and things like that. But before I get started, I do have a little bit of a housekeeping, announcement to make. Well, here's what happened. Over the weekend, I guess it was probably Saturday, Paul Teague, whose podcasts I listen to, and you should too, you can find over at selfpublishingjourneys.com, he had put out a tweet about his podcast, and I think I commented on it, and as a result of that, he replied and said he missed listening to my podcast and when was I going to be making more episodes. And I was like, well, I am actually, but I knew that I had made some changes recently as far as the podcast, because I was having issues with iTunes, and maybe it wasn't even iTunes I was having issues with. I don't know. Maybe it was like the feed service I was using. I don't know what it was. So I had switched things up a bit. And so I thought that I had, done everything correctly, but obviously I hadn't. And so, because of Paul saying that, I looked into it and did something and actually fixed it. So, if you are a listener and was wondering why I have not put out an episode in a long, long time, well, now you know. You probably got inundated with a whole bunch of them at once as things got caught up when I made the change that I needed to make, I guess. So I do apologize about that. That's just one of the challenges of being an author in the 21st century is we wear many hats. So there's the writing hat, but then there's also the technology hats, and depending on what you're doing, I guess, like if you're putting out a podcast, there's some other little things that you have to do to, there's a bunch of little things that need to be done so that you can have everything running correctly, and occasionally issues happen. So I do thank Paul for saying that, because I wouldn't even have known. Like, I had no clue that things weren't working right, and now I think they are. So I did take care of that, and in the process of doing that, I also, it really probably doesn't matter for your purposes, but for my purposes, I kind of reorganized the way I had things on YouTube. So now I have my 2018, episodes of Awkward Author in their own playlist, where the 2019 ones are in a playlist, and I just use that kind of organize stuff on my channel. So that was something I've been meaning to do for a while and just hadn't got to it. So I was like, I'm doing this other stuff. I'm going to do that. So I did take care of that. But technology stuff is not the only area where I made some progress this week. I also made some progress on my work in progress, the manuscript that I'm working on, and actually I finished a first draft of it. So I am very excited about that. Obviously, I still have a long way to go before publication, and because this is a book that I'm going to make the first of a 3-book series, and I'm going to be putting them all out at the same time. I have a very long time to go before publication because I have 2 more books to write. But I did finish the first one, so I'm really, really psyched about that. And when I say finish, I mean it's a first draft. What I generally do is, I put a book aside. Like when I've gotten to the end of a first draft, I put it aside for a little while before I go back and do some edits and revisions. Now, I do have a few things I'm going to do to it before I quite put it aside, because, just like little things, like, for instance, as I got to the end of the manuscript, I'm like, boy, there's an awful lot of people with S names in this book. It's getting kind of confusing. There are 26 letters in the alphabet. Maybe I could use some other ones and keep things less confusing, because I kind of just, it was one of those things where I had stuff outlined, but I didn't necessarily have all the minor characters. I didn't necessarily give them names. One of them is a character who has like more than one name, because, there's like an alias type of thing. So there were just too many S's floating around out there. So I'm going to go back and change some names, which is very easy to do with like find and replace. So I'll take care of that. And then there are some other things like where I actually had my original plan for the book. See, when I originally started thinking about this book, I had it really as just a standalone book, and then I realized like I could easily turn this into a series with, you know, the one character, the police detective, going through like 3 books. So that's what I decided to do. When it was a standalone book, there's maybe a little bit of a different story with the detective, and so if I'm gonna have like a 3-book series, I don't necessarily need that storyline. In fact, it's too confusing and complicated and doesn't add anything to the book. So I had a whole last chapter planned for the book that I was like, you know, as I'm working, I'm like, this chapter is not going to be here anymore. I realized, like, because it's that storyline just, it doesn't need to be there. So I do have a few references to it earlier, not many, because as I was working, it just did not fit naturally into anything. So just have a few places where I got to take that stuff out. And then there's some things where I have like X years, like stuff happened certain years ago. And it was like, I know somewhere in my notes that I have the exact number of years ago it was, but as I was like, you know, writing, I didn't have that, so I, you know, just put X years or, you know, X so and so, because I could remember someone's first name or something. I wasn't going to go back and check everything. So, you know, when I get into a zone, I'm just going, and I don't necessarily, you know, go and check all my notes and research to find the exact stuff, because you could always fill that stuff in later, which is what I'm going to do. So I will fill in all those details, get that extra storyline bit, and then put that aside. I'll put it aside for a little while. I began before, and I'm still working on the outline for the second book, and I think I'll probably... well, I'm not sure, but I do want to get the third book outlined as well. I don't know if I'll do that before I start writing the second one or not. I would like to have, you know, as far as there is a story that goes through all 3 books, I want to make sure I have that mapped out correctly, because I'll just save myself time instead of, like, you know, putting something in there that doesn't fit, I guess, and will have to get taken out and changed later. So, you know, the idea being to save myself time in the long run. So I will probably, I'm not positive, but yeah, I'll probably try to map out all 3 books before I do too much writing anyway on the second book. So that's where I'm at with what I'm writing right now. The other thing that happened on Twitter this weekend, besides, you know, my learning that I'm a dunce with my podcast feed, is that the author Angie Thomas, who you might be familiar with if you read YA books, you're almost certainly familiar with her. Her first book, The Hate You Give, was on the New York Times bestseller list for like weeks and weeks and weeks. They made a movie out of it. I think it just came out on DVD, and she has a new book out on the come up. So obviously she's a big time author, probably somewhat busy, you might expect. And so she shared something this weekend on Twitter that a student who was also a reader, had shared with her. It was an assignment from the teacher. I guess it was like an extra credit assignment. I don't even know if it was an extra credit assignment. It was an assignment from the teacher to send a tweet, I think, or was it any social media? I think it was tweet. I think send a tweet to Angie Thomas, and then they would get extra points if Angie actually, you know, replied or interacted with them in some way. And so, you know, just don't do this if you're a teacher. That would be the tip. Yeah, Angie shared it, you know, because it was like, you know, don't make a student's grade dependent on an author interacting with them. And this has been going on for years, and authors complain, like, they get emails from students that, you know, want to ask them questions, sometimes like very personal questions about their family and stuff for like school assignments, which is like, don't do that. Really, you know, I mean, I know we are accessible as authors now, and you know, that's great, I guess, in some ways, but also I think you have to respect the fact that authors have lives, and, you know, don't give your students assignments where they must, you know, reach out to an author in some way, whether it's on Twitter or through email or whatever. First of all, you know, the questions that they have are probably already answered in the author's bio, and that's actually, it's better to teach them research skills than, you know, skills of, you know, contacting authors directly. Like, you know, read the information that's out there about the author, whether they have a Wikipedia page or whether they have their own, you know, page on their website, most likely, where they have background information about themselves. And that'll tell you really anything you need to know. If it's not there, they probably don't want you to know it. But, I appreciate the fact that teachers, want to get students involved in reading, want to make it fun for them, want to, give them some, extra little challenges and stuff like that. That's great. But when it, involves interacting with authors, authors don't always have time for that, especially if you're like a New York Times bestselling author. You might be busy. You might be a little bit busy. I think she's probably touring for her book that came out recently. I mean, there's only so many hours in the day. And when you're someone like, that's that big, people are reading your book across the country. So, you've got thousands of students trying to tweet at you and contact you. There's no way you could, it would be a full-time job to, reply to everyone. And I just wish teachers would realize that before they give crazy assignments like that. Much better assignment would be to, have the student write a book review on Goodreads or Amazon or something like that, which, can help the author. And it also is a better assignment for the student as opposed to sending a tweet. Like, you're having them actually write a review, a coherent review that's actually, a good assignment and worthy of extra credit points, I would think. But not the forcing them to interact with authors. It's just, I can understand the idea behind it, but in reality, it's just not a practical thing to do at all for authors or for students. And so don't make that one of your assignments if you're a teacher. There's all kinds of different extension activities that you could do that, would be much better for the students and just overall better for everyone. That's my 2 cents on that. I know I'm not a teacher, so, what right do I have to give advice to teachers? But I am an author, I am a person, and I understand, trying to, keep up with, especially if you're like a big time author like that, trying to keep up with all those requests from people would just be overwhelming. So it is not fair to do that to authors unless you hate them or something. And also, by the way, one of the suggestions that came up when Angie had tweeted this thing was, someone saying, well, maybe it's better to just, reach out to an author, not have them interact with you and just say whether you liked or didn't like their book and why or why not. And I was like, well, wait a second. Authors don't really want to know if you didn't like their book. Okay. It just, it's not something we want to hear. Now, we know not everyone's going to like our book. We are, realistic people, but you don't have to reach out to us directly if you didn't like our book. It's okay to keep that opinion to yourself, or if you really want to share it with people, you can write a review or something. But don't, tweet to the author or send her an email saying why you didn't like her book. Because honestly, we don't care. We don't want to know that, and it doesn't help us anyway. So, if you didn't like a book, that's fine. There's no need to reach out to the author to let them know that. So that goes for whether you're a student or not a student. Just our 2 cents there, and that opinion is pretty much shared universally across the board by all authors. So I would keep that in mind if you are thinking about tweeting to an author or emailing an author and want to let them know how much you didn't like their book. I would say, nah, don't do it. Okay, not a good idea. You're not helping anyone if you do that. Yeah, so something I have been thinking about over the past week, and more than that really, is different strategies for continuing to make money on my books. Because as you know from watching my author income reports or listening to them, I don't make a whole lot of money at this author business. So I'm trying to make more and trying to, continue to figure out ways to monetize the backlist because I really don't sell too many of my old books, my young adult novels that are out there. And I'd like to make money from them. I have the rights back to them. I think there's definitely ways to go about using them to make money. I just got to figure out strategies to do that. And I'm not marketing them at all right now, so that definitely is part of it. But one of the things I've been thinking about doing is putting together a box set. So my first 3 young adult novels that I have out there are standalone books. They're not, a trilogy. They're not connected in any way. But they are all of the same genre. So, they're all YA books. And so I was thinking about doing an ebook box set of my 3 YA novels. I have a 4th one too, but I'm not going to include that in the box set because I don't want to. And it'll be its own separate thing. That might be the first book in a series 2. We'll see if I ever get around to writing any more. I mean, it has a complete story to it, so it doesn't necessarily need follow-up books, but I do have some ideas about that. Anyway, back to the 3. The first 3 I would like to put together into an ebook box set. Might even do a print collection, like an omnibus or whatever. But yeah, I want to do an ebook box set, which should be easy enough to do. I mean, right now, I have everything in vellum, so it would just be a matter of putting everything into a single document in vellum, and then I have to make a cover for it. And yeah, I would also make like a 3D, box set type graphic and try to promote it that way. I haven't really determined. I've been playing around with some different ideas as far as promoting it. But if it was like a higher value item, it might pay to actually advertise it places. I could also maybe do some promotion. Like if I have the first chapter of, like I said, the one young adult book, Unnamed Roads, that isn't going to be in there, I could maybe use that to boost sales of that book. We'll see. Again, this is just early stages of me thinking about this, but that's something I'm going to be working on, I think, is putting together a box set of those 3 books. Other thing that I meant to do and wasn't able to do when I had Girl Most Likely to Succeed and In the Bag come out was I wanted to do large print editions of those books. Well, I was using vellum and there was no way to do a large print edition using vellum. I tried to do it using other software and I just was ready to tear my hair out, so I said forget it. It's not that important. So the latest update to vellum allows you to do large print books, so I'm probably going to put out large print editions of those, and we'll have to do some kind of promotion, I guess, around them to kind of try to boost them, even though they're just print books. But I'll see what I can do. Yeah, that is one of the things I'm planning to do as well. That might take a little bit longer because, of course, with print, you need to proof things. You can't just proof them digitally. You want to get a print copy to proof. So I'll take some time to do that. I'm not sure how soon I'm going to get to that, but that is one of the things that is on my agenda to do. So I've got my work cut out for me. I've got some editing to do, I've got some outlining to do, and I've got some putting books together to do. And there's my dog Jack. He's decided to come in and say hi. Nope, he hasn't. He's turning around. Anyway, that is... Oh, he's going to lay down there. So you're going to get his butt in the video. So I will leave you with a view of a dog butt as I wrap up this week's episode. I put out these each week, try to get them out on Wednesday. They are vlogs and podcasts. You can listen or watch. If you enjoyed it, please feel free to give it a thumbs up or subscribe, and so you don't miss any episodes. I will be back again next week. Trying to do the math. Is it an author income report week? It might be. I'll see. I don't even know. I think it is, but I don't know if I'll have it ready for you next week or if it'll be the week after. We'll see how my schedule goes. In the meantime, if you would like to know any more about me, please visit my website, which is alissagrosso.com, ALISSAGROSSO.com. You can find out more about me. You can get a free ebook if you sign up for my mailing list, and and learn all about all my books that I have out there. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening. I will see you all again and talk to you all again next week. Hope you have a great week. Hope you get a lot of writing done if you're a writer or reading or whatever it is that you do. And just hope you have a great week. I will see you again soon. Take care, everyone.